And then we need to record. Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Life Empowered. I am your host, RJ Horner, host and facilitator here at Live and Love Life Leadership. Today, I'm pleased this Friday afternoon to bring you an old friend of mine, an old acquaintance who I've known a long time through the personal development industry. He's been involved in that industry. He's very active in seminars. He's a qualified author and speaker. I know him because of his first book, and now he's even got a new book coming out called I Do Now What? He is a relationship expert. He is a pastor. He is a youth mentor. His work in the field of relationships is renowned. So please welcome Jim Hetherington to the show. Thank you.
Hey, great to be here.
I'm glad you could come out. I've been trying to get to interview you for a while. You were supposed to be part of an event. It didn't happen. Not going to go into excuses by why it didn't happen, but it didn't happen. So I'm glad you're still in my community. I can still get to share your experience with the audience out there because, again, you have a wealth of relationship experience.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
You want to share a little bit about yourself? I've given you an intro, but let the people know more about you.
Yeah. So like you say, I'm an author, speaker. I do all those wonderful things. I've been married for 39 years. I've been a coach and mentor for over 30 years. I'm a business owner, entrepreneur for the last 26 years. And 23 years, I was a youth pastor, as you said. And now I'm also a wedding officiant in the province of Ontario. So I usually tell people with the experience I have in all my relationships, I've learned how to get in and out of the doghouse really well. So that sums it up.
And that's important. I don't care what anybody says. Listen, if you're married, if you're happy, and if you have any relationship whatsoever, you're going to be on their bad side at some point.
Oh, sure.
But we don't end that relationship because we're not getting along. How do you move on? You go beyond that somehow, right?
That's right. Yeah. Everything's resolvable. I think,
Absolutely.
you can work through things. Yeah.
So I look and I see you and I see a successful guy, pretty put together. We don't know about your troubles or ails. Maybe we'll get to that today. Who knows?
Sure.
But the idea is I see a pretty put together guy. You've managed to figure out a few things in life. You're a qualified author and speaker and a mentor. But have you always been this way? What has life been like for you, maybe early on, that led to this?
Yeah. So yeah, we'll do a little back history here. So
Sure.
Growing up through school, I had a list problem. Actually, I couldn't say my S's. So I had to take special classes when I was younger, and I'm dyslexic. So it was a real challenge going through school. I was always afraid to volunteer because I could not trust what I was reading. I couldn't trust what I was seeing because numbers would change, words would change, letters would change. So I was really shy and withdrawn in school. By the time I hit grade 9, I had about a grade 5 reading level. And when I turned 16 and could quit school, that's exactly what I did. I quit school, started working, thinking that, if I stepped out and did something brand new, everything would be beautiful, right? Wrong. That it just kind of followed through. But because of that passion or learning disabilities and the challenges I had, it really made me passionate to want to work with youth because I wanted to help them have a better experience through school, through working and being prepared for life. So that really started the spiral for me to learning and growing. And I was really busy with my company. About 12 years ago, life derailed. I completely burned out. I was sitting in my car ready to go to a meeting one night, and all of a sudden I couldn't think of what day it was. I couldn't think of the time it was. I couldn't pull my car in gear. I couldn't do anything. I sat there and for about 20 minutes, and then finally went into the house, called the people, told them I wasn't going to be at the meeting. And for the next 6 months, I had to step out of everything. I stepped out of leadership. I stepped out from my business. All my employees went elsewhere, and everything unraveled. And it took me almost 2 years to get myself back to the place where I was able to function. There was one point I couldn't work one day and not be exhausted for 3 or 4 days. It took me a long time to get built up. So over the last 12 years, I've spent a lot of time in trying to discover how to find balance in life, with work, with business, with relationships, with commitments, with all that stuff. And so that's why I appear to be more put together now, because I've learned to keep that balance. It can't be all work. It can't be all, one thing. We really need to keep things even. I teach that, you need to keep your work world, your career world, you need to keep balance in that. Your relationship world, you need to keep balance there. Your physical world, where you take care of yourself, enjoy life, that needs to be balanced. And your spiritual world, you need to have all those things where you're contributing a little bit each day, each week into those areas to keep that balance. And I wasn't doing that 12 years ago. Yeah, I almost didn't bounce back. So life is good now. I enjoy it, but I balance it. I take care of me first, before I'm guilty as most people, we're so good at taking care of others, family, community, work, business, clients. We're good at taking care of all that. We're really terrible at looking after ourselves. And at least I was, and that's what caused my derailment. Now I take the first 2 hours of every day, and that's me exercising, feeding myself, nourishing, plus, reading things, meditating, praying, doing all those things. That's I start that every day now, looking after me, and then I'll give myself to everything else.
So do you think you've achieved that balance then, that ultimate balance that you're talking about?
Yeah, there's still days, where I'm like anybody else, at the end of the week comes or the end of a day comes, I go, okay, I put a little bit too much in here or there. I'm still a little bit guilty, because I just love writing and creating. And so I'll spend a lot of time in the evening. It's not uncommon for me to stay up till 12 or 1 o'clock, get back up at 6 o'clock and get going at it again. So that's, so sometimes I do push the clock a little bit far
Burn the
ahead.
midnight oil, right?
Yeah, but I'm much better at keeping that balance, because you know what, I turned 61 yesterday, and I want to maintain this for another 10, 15, 20 years. I want to continue to do this stuff. So I don't want to drag myself over the finish line. I want to continue to, prosper through it and be strong through it, healthy through it, and maintain that balance.
Absolutely. And so something else I know about you is you've been training physically to compete, basically.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in our times, you couldn't actually compete, but you did virtually do a half marathon, was it?
Well, I did last year. We kind of tallied up what we did. I think I ran probably close to 800 kilometers last year. I did probably 4 half marathons, and I did 1 full marathon. In fact, I bumped it up a little bit. When I did my marathon, I ran 45 kilometers. I just kind of rounded it up to 45 kilometers. And now I'm training to do another one. I'm going to do a half marathon at the end of this month and another marathon. So yeah, so I still keep up the running, that's been amazing in itself. 5 years ago, I was supposed to have surgery on a knee that, I just kind of blew. And I couldn't even walk around the block without it giving out on me. But I've really been fortunate, conditioned, and worked my way up. And now I never had to have the surgery. But I just found this new passion in running and just being physically fit. And it's amazing the mental game in that. Somebody said to me once, it's a lot of mental game. Like if you can prepare yourself and run 3, 5, 10 kilometers, you can do it, because it's all mental. And I didn't get that until I started doing it. And it's so true. And you can apply that to anything in life. There's a certain part in anything that you do, you'll hit a wall, but you can mentally just make that shift. Like, okay, my body can do this. My brain can do this. I can physically accomplish, mentally I can accomplish this. A lot of it is right here. It's so much in the mental game of our success. They say part of it, 80% of it is just showing up. Well, it's true, but it's adjusting the mental mindset. It's like Henry Ford said, if you think you can or can't do something, you're right.
Mhm.
And it's so true, because once you say, oh, I can't do that. Well, you're right. You can't do it.
Yeah, you've already lost
But
the
when you
game.
look at it and say, yeah, I can do this. I can push through this. I can mentally adjust and do that. So I really discovered that lesson, through all the running and the training, like, especially when you start hitting, doing 25, 30, 35 kilometers, your body just says, hey, come on, let's take a break. It's like, no, we can do this, we can get through. So it's a good mental game.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear that you have overcome it, because again, that's what we're about here. And I have, again, physical ailments. I have a sciatic nerve that prevents me from doing my job. I would love to believe that one day down the road, I could be able to walk normal again and be able to maybe even run again. I used to be, as a youth, I used to run to work. I used to work at the Sky Dome.
Yeah.
So I used to run to work. I used to live in downtown Toronto. So it was about a 20-minute run to work. work all day on my feet as I was a vendor, up and down the aisles, and then run home at the end of the night. So I was in great condition as a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
I would love to believe I can get to similar condition. I'm not yet 50, so I would love to believe that dream is possible. Looking at you, I mean, you're over 60 and still in peak physical health.
Yeah.
And it's good, I guess, for people to see that. So
sure. Yeah. And really, honestly, like a year ago, I struggled to run a kilometer. Like when I first started back out, a year and a bit, almost 2 years ago, I would go out to run a kilometer. I would run maybe 100, 200 meters. I'd have to walk 100 or 200 meters. And then I'd run a little bit more and slowly built myself up. And it took me a long time just to break the 1 kilometer, then the 3 kilometer, then the 5 kilometer, and slowly build it up where now it's nothing for me to go out and do a 10 or 15K run. That's just kind of an average run for me now, just to keep in shape. But so it's possible.
Absolutely. I think that's the lesson for everybody right there, is that it all takes build up. It doesn't happen instantly for anything. You had to start with those 200 meters or whatever you were taking at a time. And
sure. And I think, I think another part of it too, RJ, is eliminating all the excuses. There's reasons and there's excuses. And, there's reasons sometimes why we can't do something, like if it's the middle of January and there's, 2 meters of snow, that's the reason why you can't get to a meeting. That's not an excuse. That's the reason, so there's a difference. I remember talking to a friend of mine, and he's run 5 or 6 marathons. And, I talked to him, I said, oh, I've got a bad knee and all these different things, excuses, right? And he looks at me, he says, Jim, he says, I've seen people cross the finish line in wheelchairs. I've seen people cross the finish line with one leg, with crutches, and he went on and on and on. I looked at him, I said, so you're trying to tell me I've got no excuse? And he says, you got no excuse. And that's really half the thing. It's just eliminate the excuses and just go for it.
And thank you for that. Because again, I maybe put up excuses. I keep saying, oh, I should get a workout routine. I should practice and exercise regularly, but I don't.
Yeah.
And it's only me putting up whatever barriers that I put up myself, right?
So, yeah. Those shoulda, woulda, couldas, right?
Right. Yes. Yes. And so we are about empowerment here. That's what we're talking about, is ways to help get better. And so you talked about some of your struggles, and the first one was dyslexia. Yet now you're an author and speaker. How do you overcome dyslexia to get to being a professional author and speaker?
Yeah, I have lots of good proofreaders. I still have to proofread things and just double check things. I get Grammarly to help me to write it, and I often will not post things or do things until my wife checks them. Like she'll read through things, because sometimes it's easy when we and this is for all of us. We can get into our work and we can do things, and when we're writing, we know what we want to communicate. And so it's easy for our brain to skip over it and just say, yeah, that sounds great. But giving it to somebody else and saying, okay, read through this. And then they go, what does this mean? What does this mean? And then they can start to clarify things. I think that's been helpful for me to do that. And I don't know, there was just something in me. I've always loved books. Even when I was younger, I loved books. I didn't read them. I hated reading. It was just not one of my favorite things because I was terrible at it. But I just always loved books. And so, a few years back when I had the opportunity to write my first book, I just fell in love with it. And, and having people to help, clean up the grammar and do that kind of stuff, all of a sudden I realized, hey, I'm not half bad. I can communicate thoughts, and to have somebody clean it up grammar wise, it was great. So that's been really helpful for me. And I've learned to reread things. Sometimes I'll look at things backwards because I'll catch words and see things. And so it's just been little things that I've had to do. And part of it is just keeping myself, again, in balance, making sure that I'm rested and stuff, because I know when I'm overtired, I miss things. And so it's just learning how to apply it and use it.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And then, so the second thing that you've overcome in your life, you said you became an entrepreneur. You were well invested. You had a business and employees you were responsible for. And then pretty much you drained, you got derailed, you said, and lost it all.
Yeah.
Talk about that for a moment, if you would. What was that?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah. So that was scary. It really was, because we were, the company was growing really well. I had full-time employees, part-time employees. I had subcontractors, contracted out. I had work for 12 to 18 months ahead of me. I had people that would get on my waiting list and wait for 6, 8 months. Like they would just wait. And so when this happened and I couldn't work, like honestly, I mean, it wasn't an excuse. I just had nothing left. I couldn't care less if I got out of bed. I couldn't care less if I got dressed or ate or did anything. I didn't care if I spoke even. It was just really a challenging time to go through. But it was scary because that was one of the things that hit me while I was sitting in my vehicle, unable to move, was just, my mind started racing, my heart started racing, thinking about the work, my commitments, my obligations and such to employees and, the commitment to clients and so on. Yeah, so it was a scary time to kind of get going again and almost having to reinvest and restart everything 12 years ago. So that's in my late 40s. So it was, it was scary.
And so this same business, you kept that going and were able to rebuild on that.
Yeah, so I still keep my hand in it today. I still operate it as well as doing the speaking and the teaching and writing. And so I'm still actively involved in it, but I control it a little bit more. I don't let it control me. I control it a little bit more, and just decide what I want to put into it.
Do you know what made you take that step? What woke you up enough to get back into the business mode and save it?
Do I know what caused it? I think, primarily it was because that was my bread and butter. And, so I wanted to continue to maintain that, but I knew it wasn't something that I wanted to stay in forever. So I began to look at things and look at other opportunities, look at other ventures like I've done now with teaching and writing and creating programs and doing all that stuff. I began to look at that, saying, okay, this is lighting me up. This has really become a real passion, a real purpose almost. And I discovered that, for me, it was, running the company, doing all the stuff that I was doing before, even serving, like I was working, 60, 70 hours a week in my company. I was also serving, in my spare time, I was serving 20 to 24 hours a week with youth and young adults. I was mentoring over 100 students at one time. I was responsible for that many kids. And so I was putting in a lot of hours. So it was, it wasn't that I wasn't, doing much, but I just really became aware that I needed to get myself an environment where I was looking after me. And so once I did that, then I started to grow. Then I started to learn. I discovered, new values and new purposes and new passions when I started to learn and study and grow in different areas. So, and part of it was just sitting back also and looking at it and say, okay, what does success look like for me? It was one of those things I had to really look at, because I was busy doing, I was busy working, I was busy serving, I was doing it. So from the outside, I looked really successful, but I really had no plan. I had no real design. Like I couldn't say, this is what my success plan is. This is what ultimately success looks like for me. So I had to design that and really look at it. And once I did that, then I saw areas of weakness, areas I needed to grow in. And then I began to put myself in new environments where I started to grow those skills. And then that would unleash something different. And so, new passions and purposes and stuff were unfolding all the time. It's like I say, there's seeds of potential and creativeness in each one of us. It's not until we get into the right environment where we learn and grow that we can really discover what those things are. And so that's what it was for me. It lit up.
And I love exactly where this discussion is going, because like I said, you found yourself struggled or a lack of motivation or not driven by what should have been your passion, which can happen to any one of us out there. It's happened to me. It's obviously happened to you. And then you found a path out of that. You know what I mean? Okay. Depression can happen if we spend too much time in that place.
Yeah.
But if we look for, okay, where are we going from here? Okay, I'm not enjoying this. What is going to be enthuse me? What is going to make me enjoy life again? And how do I get to it? What can I do? And how can I be more involved? Now, you were very involved, but you were also burning out.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to watch those. So
that's right. Yeah. I mean, the truth is, by the time we hit 35 years of age, or on average, that that most of what we do is just automatic. You know, the science has shown us that 60,000, you know, the 60,000 thoughts that we have every day, by the time we're 35 or so, 95% of those are automatic. So we're working on 5 to 10% creativeness every day. And I mean, you think of your day routine, your mornings are the same, your day routines are the same, your lunchtime routines, dinner, evening, so on. Everything we do is routine. And so we get locked into that. So I think the thing is that once we get out of school, we've established ourselves in our career, start a family, you know, for most people, you know, we start a family and so on, and everything becomes automatic, becomes routine. We just start doing the same thing. And I think we can lose focus on, you know, the creativeness. We can lose focus on, you know, what we're really excited about, what we're ambitious about, unless we can begin to walk in, you know, start shifting that from the 95% automatic and get it down to 90, get it down to 85, get it down to 70, 60, so that we're creating new things and we're discovering new things. And that's really what that 12 years ago, the experience I went through forced me to do was, okay, I can't put in the 60, 70 hours that I was putting in over here. I need to do things that I'm really passionate about, that really light me up. And so then I discovered, you know, writing and creating and doing all that stuff. And then I started to invest time in that. And then it just opened up a whole new world for me.
And exactly, we are about building a better life, right? And it is about putting the effort in, based on finding your passion, your excitement again. Because again, around 35 to 40, we start to find that stagnation. There's no more joy. We don't enjoy doing this day in, day routine, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And then how do we go beyond that, right? So I discovered personal development. Obviously, you discovered personal development. We preach a personal development lifestyle here. That's really what this community is all about.
Right.
So there's where I discovered you, right? I get out and find ways to learn and develop, as you mentioned. And seminars are one of those ways. And there's where I met you at the seminars, where you were already speaking and teaching about your first book at that point.
Right.
And I've learned a lot from you, and you have a lot of guidance to offer people in the area of just in. I'm not talking about marriage or you know where your aptitudes are, but just in talking and communicating and being able to have a relationship with people out there that we have to deal with on a better daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because I
that
mean,
brought. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, because, yeah, I mean, relationships are at the heart of everything that we do, right? Whether it's in business, whether it's in home, you know, whether we're, you know, married, children, extended family, even going to the corner, corner cafe to get your coffee, it's interaction. It's, you know, 90% of the time when I go to to get a coffee at my favorite Starbucks, not that I'm name dropping or anything, but I just, you know, I love Starbucks. I always go inside because I get to engage with them. Even through this whole COVID, I've gone inside because it's important to engage. And that's one of those things that, you know, I think we lose sight of how valuable and how important relationships are in everything that we do. Again, we get so routine in the stuff. And, you know, I always say that, there's that old expression that familiarity breeds contempt, but it also breeds disrespect. Because when we hang around people for an awful long time, we can start to take them for granted. We don't respect them quite the same. We don't talk to them the same way. We don't treat them the same way. And I think that's one of the things that we really need to get back to is just, you know, with our close friends, with our spouse, with our, long-term partners, with all that stuff, we need to treat them like we did when we first met them. If we can maintain that, it changes.
And it's difficult, right? The longer time we spend, the more the communication breakdown
Sure.
happens. So again, loved ones, my partner, my kids, I know that if we get mad or upset at each other, it's going to be repaired. You know what I mean? Give them time. We'll get over it. But it's the other relationships, the ones that we're going to deal with, either on a business relationship where we have to have that strong relationship, or those people we may meet for a short period of time. You know what I mean? We sometimes take them for granted too and don't communicate well with them because who are they? They don't matter to me.
That's right.
Why do I have to pay them respect?
Yeah.
And so it's about building relationships with everybody you deal with, right?
Yeah. And I think part of what you were just suggesting there really comes down to our character, which is part of the self-development and continuing to grow, because a good character would treat, a person, regardless of how well we know him, regardless of whether we're going to see him again, a good quality character is going to treat that person with the same respect as they would of their best friend or long-term spouse or partner. That's the character, becoming the person, the same person in public and in private, the same person with strangers, with, people that know us really well. That's the true depth of character, I believe. And that only comes with really personal development, growing ourselves. And I always tell people, look, you get into relationships, you're the common denominator in every one of them. So whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, you're the common denominator. So the only thing that you can control in any relationship that you're in is you. Mm-hmm. And the better you become as a person that can relate and be compassionate and caring and sensitive and respectful and all that, is the degree that you will be successful in your relationships, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And I can totally agree. You didn't meet me when I was in my angry phase. You never knew the angry person that I was. I was frustrated and angry at the world. But I had to accept that, look, there's the common denominator. It's me. I'm the one affected in each of these instances that I'm offended by. So my boss even said it to me once. He said, if there's a common problem, you might want to look at where's the problem.
Yeah.
And wow, the mirror was right in front of me at the time, basically, right? Like
Sure.
I had to open up and say, wow, I'm responsible. I'm the one who is in each of these moments. I'm the one who could change each of these moments.
That's right.
And it was an eye opener for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's so easy to say it's the other person's fault.
Right.
And it's almost the same, it's the same way when we start pointing fingers. You got to remember, you got one finger pointing at, the other person, saying it's your fault. You did this, you did that. And remember, there's three fingers pointing back at you. Right.
Yep.
You've got all that pointing back at you. So you're the one that, for me in my marriage, that was a big turning point for me. I had one of my mentors challenged me and she said, hey, Jim, when you're pointing your finger at your wife saying you should do this and you should be better in this area and you should be better in that area, he said, take a look at your hand. And at first I was like, what are you talking about? And so he says, point at me. And I pointed and he says, what's pointing back at you? And I went, oh, I get it now. So that's when I really started to look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, it's not my wife that needs to change. It's not her that needs to do more. It's me that needs to worry about myself and what I'm doing, what I'm contributing. And I think if we got to the place where we're willing to put more into a relationship than we expect out of a relationship, I think that's a better place to be.
Right. And again, it's all about you, right? I love the quote. Again, this guy is his music was beyond his time. He's no longer with us. Michael Jackson.
Mm.
And I love his line for the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the man in the mirror. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make the change.
Yeah. No,
right. Absolutely. If you want that better world, and I saw this when I started the change. If you want that better world, put out a better aura, put out a better spirit, try to give a better energy and, give a good day and a smile and a nod and how are you doing to everybody out there and watch the reactions you get in return.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's all about engagement, just engaging with people and just, just a smile, a nod, a wave, just changes your attitude and your reflection, but it changes other people as well, I think.
Right. So, do you remember as kids, I used to love going into McDonald's because on the menu it said smiles.
Yeah, that's right.
Free.
Yeah, for
remember
free.
That?
Yeah.
But do you know they had to change that at a certain period coming into the 90s? Do you know why?
No, I didn't know that.
Because we all got too expectant. And then we'd be snappy with the attendants at the drive-thru going, where's my smile? I thought smiles were free, right? But we'd become so negative over something that was meant to be just a gentle reminder that, look, we can all be a little more enthusiastic and just a smile goes a long way, right? So a message that should have been powerful got taken out of context and removed from our dictionary, basically.
Yeah. But I mean, that's a great analogy for our own lives. When we're in our 20s and 30s, what worked in relationships, what worked in our lives may not work 10, 15, 20, 25 years. We need to continue to adjust. Like it's like the old story of the man that married a woman and he says, I love you. And he says, if it changes, I'll let you know. In other words, I'm telling you today, and that's going to carry you through for your lifetime. Well, that doesn't work, because of our posture and the way we say things and the way we do things and so on. We need to continue to adjust. So, I mean, it's the same as that McDonald's menu with the free smiles, we need to change, because what worked in our 20s when we first met someone, when we first got our job, whatever it is, may not be working, and we need to continue to grow and adjust and become the better person. Because I've always said that when we become our very best, we cause others around them to become their very best. Right? We lift the whole circle up.
Right, and that's exactly what our whole community is built around. Right, by joining and by uniting and helping. Look, if I help you become better, or you help me become better, both of us in our element become better. So we're helping to lift that element that we control or influence to become better. And now they are getting stronger and able to help influence those around them. So by helping to elevate and become better, we help the world become better.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
and I've seen too much of a negative influence going on in our world, in our relationships, and our dealing with people. We have so much going on that I feel almost like we're on a tipping point. We're too negatively charged, and we have to do something to counteract that at this point.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the shift. I think we've become too entitled. It's just like, going into McDonald's. You expected that smile for free. You expected them to treat you well. Well, what happened about going in and giving that smile and expecting to treat that person with respect and honor them? But we come to I think that's part of the drive-through mentality that we've created over the years. We can pull up to a window, get what we want, pull up to the next window, get what we want, and we expect that in relationships. I pull up to this relationship, I expect to get what I want. I get to this I get what I want. We forget about what we contribute, what we put into it. And so then all of a sudden, all our relationships become deficits, because we just keep withdrawing, we keep taking out, we keep expecting more, and we just sap all those relationships just by expecting more out of them, rather than, like you say, the shift needs to be, what am I contributing? What am I putting into this, relationship?
Absolutely. And then I blame, you mentioned the drive-throughs. I blame drive-throughs for some of the downfall and the disconnect that we have, right?
Sure.
Because we've gotten too fast, right? I remember back in the 80s, 90s, when I first learned how to drive, 80s to 1990-ish. Yeah. But you know what? Everybody was courteous, right? It's go ahead. You can go ahead.
Yeah.
Right. But now it's, I got to get there first. I got to get in and get done. And you don't matter. I got to cut you off. And too bad. So sad. And then we get arguments and road rage and so many other things, because we got to have it now. We got to go fast. We got to get it done. It's changed our mentality and changed our ability to connect and communicate again.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. The funniest one I heard was two guys there. It was one guy was on the highway and the other guy was merging in. And, with merging, you just let one in and you go, let one that comes in and just on it, and everything works beautifully. Well, these two guys came up and they weren't going to let each other go. And so the one guy says, okay, I'll rock, paper, scissors you for see who. So that's what it's come down to. We'll do rock, paper, scissors to gamble rather than respect the rules of the road. It's just, we'll just, if you beat me, I'll let you go first. It's
that's where we are now. Yes. Yeah. Whoever gets out in front. And it's sort of changed the way we connect with each other. One of my favorite books is John Maxwell, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect, right? And it's really the fact that we are not engaging. Whether, again, our kids, we've lost our disconnect with our kids. Not everybody, but society overall, we've lost because of the digital world that we've evolved into. And we need to do something to reinstate that or reverse it if we can, to try and help people through this.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is just, reintroducing into our relationships silent time. Just shutting off media, shutting off TV, shutting off cell phones, shutting off all that stuff, and just having a time where we can just say, let's do real FaceTime. Let's gauge in even if it's only for 5 minutes, just engage in that, because they say on average, like an average parent spends seconds a day, minutes a day with their child in quality interaction.
Right.
But if we would just go in and just spend a little bit of time, like my wife and I, when we're home, we shut everything off between 5 and 7 o'clock. If I'm not out on the road, if I'm not doing stuff and I'm home between 5 and 7, you likely won't get me, because I will take time and do it. I mean, we scheduled this at a different time. That's different. So we had our time earlier. We had a couple hours earlier before we even started this. But we'll schedule 2 hours where we have our meal together. We'll cook together. We'll sit down. We'll have some conversation. We'll watch a Netflix. We'll do something together, but without the cell phone. Often my cell phone is on silent up in my office. It's not near me. It's not beside me. So it's getting back to those things, I think would be really, really helpful.
Especially for our kids. Like with my partner, you know what, I do what I can to engage with her, right? Like, did what you just said, you know, I made sure to spend time with her this afternoon because I knew this interview was this evening. It's going to take away from our evening time together. Again, you manage, you get around things, right?
Sure.
Yeah. You give and take, right? Isn't that what a relationship is about?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Compromise.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But there's so many people that just decide, I know one couple, they got married, and when the wife, she just said, I'm not changing anything in my schedule. I'm going to treat everything exactly the same. So she did her Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 job. She did her morning routine, her evening routine, or going out with her girlfriends, all that stuff. Nothing changed except for her address. That's the only thing that changed. She would not adjust anything in her schedule. And so I don't know where that relationship will end up in the long term, but she had no desire to change whatsoever when she entered into the relationship. She was going to carry on her life exactly the same. The only difference was her geographic location and the fact that she was now married.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we have such frustration. We are resistant to change, right?
Sure.
But I don't care what you say, all change happens. The sun rises in the morning and sets at night. Every single day. It keeps moving, regardless of what we decide. You know, when you had your days you didn't want to get out of bed, the sun kept going. The light kept moving on. All atoms kept circulating around you.
Yeah.
Right. So you can avoid it all you want. It's there. The only thing you can do is embrace it and try to move forward. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I talk about in my new book is expectations. Because going into relationships, we can all have expectations. And sometimes we can carry unrealistic expectations into a marriage, or into a business relationship, or into any type of partnership. We can have the expectation that that person is going to, treat us better than gold, that they're going to do more than what we do. And they're going to, whatever it is, there's all kinds of expectations, unrealistic, unhealthy, unmet. There's all kinds of different areas of expectation that we really need to look at. And I think if we could begin to have those conversations in every arena of our lives, just, okay, what are the expectations here? Like I have a new guy working for me in my company, and I just had to say, okay, here's my expectation. This is what I expect. And if they're unrealistic, let's talk about it right now. If you don't think they're achievable, let me know so we can adjust them. I don't want to have these hanging over your head. If you think they're unachievable, if you think they're unrealistic, we need to look at them, because when they're unmet, then that starts to break the fabric of the relationship down, right? We can start to become discouraged. We'll lose trust and confidence in the person when their expectations are unmet. So I said, let's talk about those things. And so we have an open conversation on what is expected and what isn't expected. And so I encourage couples, when they go into marriage, talk about those expectations, because after you say I do, and you start building a life together, I guarantee you both coming in with expectations of what that first Monday morning is going to look like when you wake up living in the same home. You both have expectations, he might be expecting breakfast in bed. She might be expecting to be, have a breakfast brought in from outside. I mean, there's all kinds of expectations, and we need to talk about that. Same in business world, any world, we need to look at those things.
You've seen it on the sitcom, and you find out the husband goes, "What, you don't cook?"
Yeah, that's
You know
right.
what I mean? Come on.
Yeah.
How long you guys known each other?
Yeah. There was actually a couple that happened. The gentleman was a widower, and the wife, I can't remember if she was married before or not, but when they got married, the husband, who was a widower, came down, and this is the gift he gave his bride, his brand new bride, the day after they got married. He brought down, he said, "Here's the cookbook that my wife used to use to cook. This is what I expect." Could you imagine waking up to that? I mean, I'm sure your audience is just going crazy right now thinking, how could that possibly be? But yeah, that was his expectation coming into the marriage. You're going to cook and treat me the same way as, my deceased wife treated me. And so, wow.
Yeah. And I can't believe that. But I mean, what it boils down to is you've talked about expectations. We all have expectations, but The reason we get frustrated is because they're not meeting our expectations. But did they know what our expectations are? I call it the master key. You said you've bounced your way around it, but haven't used the word I want to use, which is communication. Right? We need to communicate with each other. Nobody's going to know how I feel or what I'm thinking or what I want unless I tell them these things.
That's right.
Share that. Be open to expressing your thoughts and feelings, and you'll get a little bit more.
Well, you'd be expected. I think you would get a lot more. I know when I take couples through exercise and talk about expectations, begin to communicate, like you say, just speak those things out. Make a list of the things that you expect and, the things that you're asking for, and then turn and ask and talk about it and say, okay, this is doable. That's possible. This is impossible. And you can start to work through those things. And then you'd be amazed at how much more you will get by not keeping them a secret, as you say, but actually sharing them, communicating, speaking out loud. Because the truth is, it's like anything else. Until you identify it, put a name to it, speak it out, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. It's the unknown, the unspoken that really starts to create the unmet expectations and causes the frictions.
And it's in my book, the last step in getting what you want, everything you desire, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, they call it the master key, the Aladdin, magic lamp. And it's ask. Don't be afraid to ask, communicate, tell people what you want.
Yeah.
Right. Open sesame, and wow, it opened. How amazing is that? Right. You asked and you got what you want. So
but I think it's, and largely that's because we're afraid of, the rejection. We're afraid of people saying no. But on the other side, why are we so afraid that we might get a yes? Like, why are we so afraid of that possibility? But the negative side of it is outweighed it so powerfully that we're afraid to even ask, like you say.
And I'll tell you, even the other side of the coin is where what prevented me from taking the next steps for a long time is I'm afraid of the yes. I'm afraid kind of what that success might bring, because I know it brings that change again that we're so afraid of.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I really encourage people to strongly define what success means, because when you can define what success is for you, then you can begin to break down, okay, if I want success in this area, in this relationship or in this business or this financial goal or whatever it is, you can begin to break down exactly what it is. And then you can start to look at those things and say, okay, if I got success and achieved this, what would that really look like? And that's the question we have to ask. For our long-term success, the vision, the big vision that we have for our entire life, say, okay, if I achieve success in that, or if I became successful and reached that goal or reached that, what would that mean for me? How would that, and that would start to eliminate some of those fears, because then we can look at it and say, okay, this is where I want to be. These are the things I need to do to get there. Oh, that means I got to overcome this. I got to take, we can start to look at those things. Then we identify the things that could be tripping us up and keeping us from being successful.
Absolutely. Again, it's not an instant fix, right? It's a process. We have to kind of prepare ourselves for that process.
Yeah.
I tell people, look, I want to walk you through the journey. That's what my 10 steps are all about. I can help you walk that path. Why? Because I've been there. I've been here where I didn't know what I want. I didn't know where life was going. But I can tell people that now I'm a confident man who knows where he's going. I know where I want to go in life, and I'm on a path to get there.
Yeah.
Right. But that didn't come instantly. I had to do the work. I had to write it down on paper, and I had to ask myself some deep and painful questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, there's huge sacrifice to being successful. You really need to be, you have to sacrifice, for example, if you want to, be faithful in a marriage, in your relationship, then you have to, sacrifice, going and doing and visiting certain things in order to not compromise that area. And it's like anything else. There's huge sacrifices in order to get there. If like I wanted to run a marathon, okay, that meant I needed to get up a half an hour early. I needed to start running a kilometer and 2 kilometers and 3 kilometers a day to build up my stamina and my endurance. So there was sacrifice, to get there. And so anything in life, in order to be successful at it, there's great sacrifice that needs to happen, and the degree of success that you want in something, there's even a greater degree of success. There's certain sacrifices that we would need if we wanted to save, $1,000. There's even more sacrifice that's needed if we wanted to save $100,000. If we want to make $10 a day, we know what we need to sacrifice to make $10 a day. You want to make $1,000 a day, you know what you need to start sacrificing in order to achieve that goal. And
Right.
so once you write those things down, then you can say, okay, this is what I have to do in order to, achieve that level of success. Am I willing to sacrifice to do that? This is what it takes to be successful in marriage. Am I willing to do that? And really start to work through that whole process.
So you talked about two things right there quickly. First, you said we need to write it down. We need to know what we're looking at in order to get there. And it takes sacrifice, but also effort, right? It's going to take some work.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of the work that it's going to take to get there. But also you mentioned goals. And if we start writing out what it is we want, and then we start to figure out what we can do to get there. Okay, I can give up this, but I can make sure I do this, and that's going to be a little closer to where I want to be, right? To saving that $100,000 or getting to that 21 kilometers, right? So whatever it is your goal, you need to start with thinking about it, and let's get it down on paper where you can visualize it,
Sure. Yeah.
conceptualize it.
Yeah. I mean, because studies have shown that people that just writing down stuff, you're 50% more likely to complete it just by writing it down. There's a greater success in even accomplishing small things. Doesn't matter what it is, you have a greater success at doing it. And when there was a study done, and when they talked to people about success, they discovered that only 8% were really successful in achieving certain goals. And when they started to break down what it was because they had marked down, they had written down, they had achievable steps and action steps and so on to get them toward it. Because you can't gauge if you're becoming successful. That's why, what I said when I was, 12 years ago, I was working lots of hours, I was doing all kinds of stuff, but I was just throwing in time and throwing in energy and throwing in resource. I had no clear definition of what I was doing, why I was doing it, how, if I was getting there, if I was getting closer. I had no idea. I just kept doing and doing and doing. And I think many people are, in that same boat where they just keep doing stuff, they keep going for it, but they don't have clear definition of what they're going for, how they're, and so there's no way to really measure that.
Absolutely. And we know the term SMART goals. And if anybody out there doesn't know that term, please look it up. And that will get you started towards writing down your goals and working on that process, because they are, 5 simple acronyms that help you work towards achieving your goals. And that is working towards a better life, which I think we're supposed to do every single day of our lives. And I think when we don't, that's where we get that dissatisfaction or disillusionment with our lives, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And if we don't do something to change or to find that passion, again, you found engagement with more giving back than being involved in your business, right? You found serving others to be more useful than the joy you were getting out of your day-to-day life, right?
Yeah. Because I think there's and that in itself, there needs to be a real balance in what we're willing to give away, what we do for nothing, what we invest in, how we invest in others, because we can slowly lose sight of ourselves. I mean, parents are, we're guilty of it as parents. We look after our kids, we work hard for our kids, we sacrifice for the kids, but then all of a sudden, we're starting to, deplete because we're not looking after ourselves. I always liken it to being on an airplane. You get on an airplane, the airline attendants get on there and they start talking about all the different safety rules. And they say, if there's a decrease in air pressure, an oxygen mask is going to come down. They don't say, run around the plane, putting everybody else's on first. And if you can get back to your seat, if you haven't clunked your head on the fuselage, you can get back to your seat, then put yours on, then you might make it. No, they say, put yours on first. If you can put yours on and adjust it, then help the one beside you, then help the, then you start doing it. So there's a real need to get back to that, looking after ourselves, I think.
I like that you said that first, because I think, again, there is such a thing as giving too much of ourselves.
Sure.
And we don't find that fine balance.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you have no matter balance. So it is about life balance in all, and I call it a holy trinity in mental, spiritual, and physical. So there's our life balance that kind of keeps me in check, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think it is important because there's going to be times where we need to sacrifice.
Right.
There's times that, if there's an illness or somebody's sick or somebody needs extra help or something, there's going to be those times we need to sacrifice. And so, like you say, if we keep ourselves balanced, as best we can, I mean, there's no such thing as perfect balance, right? It's kind of like having, the four wheels on our vehicle. We got the shock absorbers, you got the air pressure in there. And if you maintain the balance, the pressure in there as you're going down the road, when you hit a bump, one can cushion the other and take that deflection and help you maintain that balance. So that's the importance of those areas of life that we talk about. But there's going to be times where we need to sacrifice. That happens. If there's an ailment in family, or something comes up, an emergency comes up, you need to work a little harder to make a little extra, whatever it is, there's going to be things. So when we keep ourselves in good balance, then we're in a good condition that we can afford to put a little extra in, a little effort in an area and so on, right? To do that. But if we're if we're kind of operating in a depleted mode, it's hard to pull out that extra to give and to help out, so I think there's times.
Yeah, we need to keep ourselves in as peak condition as we can, and there's why it's to be the best you can. I believe the purpose of all life, not just human life, every being, every atom, the purpose of all life is to grow and be the best it can be. Right? Jim Rome has an expression: "How tall does a tree grow? As tall as it can." Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't stop. I mean, if the sun blocks it out, it can't grow that tall. But these are all things that we have to battle, or obstacles that we have to overcome in life. But it's still our job to overcome and still grow as strong or as big or as powerful as we might become.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's certainly a choice. We have
is.
to make the choice. And I think part of it is, we're taught when we're young that, if we get a good education, we can get a good job, and then life will be perfect. We can meet somebody, we'll fall in love, get married, and we'll live happily ever after. We're conditioned to believe those kind of things, but we're not really trained or educated properly. Yes, you'll meet somebody. Yes, you'll get a good, a career. You'll build that, but there's no guarantee that it's going to work until you put the effort in and put the extra in, that you continue to grow and evolve and develop yourself. And so oftentimes, I think, like I said, at 35, we just kind of check out and we just kind of go in this cruise mode on every aspect of our lives, thinking that, oh, it's just going to naturally happen. And it's not going to naturally happen. Things will naturally fall apart. That's just, that's a given. Things will naturally fall apart, but it's no guarantee that they're naturally going to grow and continue to get better and better, unless we put the effort in and the time and the challenges.
And one of the things I love we've been talking about is helping others. You talked about service to others. You're a pastor, you're a mentor. You know about a life of service. I will say it's the one thing that got me out of my funk the most. I discovered volunteering at that time. And, being able to, when again, I was near depression, I was angry, upset at everything around me. And by able to turn to others and being able to help others, I was able to get out of my own mind for a time.
Yeah.
And I think that enabled me to think differently by seeing other people struggling. Maybe I'm not struggling so much. Maybe I don't have it so bad, and life could get better for me. So when it was in my darkest, I will say being able to serve others was a path forward for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's such an important thing to do. I mean, I've done it, in, locally in my own city, in neighboring cities. I've done it in neighboring countries. I've gone into Central America. I've been down to Central America probably 16, 17 times just serving. I've probably taken a couple hundred students over the years down in there, and and I still connected. I'm going to be doing a little conference next week for a local group of pastors. It might be 40 or 50 of them that are going to gather, and we're going to do some teachings and stuff for an hour, just to encourage them in leadership and sharpen the skills and encourage them a little bit. But there's just there is something powerful about just giving away, just serving, just it could be in anything. There's so many different ways, and I think it's one of those lost arts, almost we'll call it, of just serving and volunteering. My parents were wonderful. My dad just passed away last year, and he was 84 when he passed away. My mom's 82. She's still with me. And they used to go and volunteer and serve the old people coffee at an old age home. And it was so hilarious. They're in their 80s and they're volunteering to serve coffee, but they just had a real passion to serve and to help others. And it just lit them up. It kept them young. I mean, yeah, there's just something valuable about doing that.
You know what, I used to, I have an old lady. Well, I call her an old lady, but she was in her late 50s, and I'm like 25. So at the time, to me, she was an older
Sure,
lady,
that's
right?
old.
Yeah, at the time, that's the way I saw it. She was a sweet old lady to me, right? But she always had a smile on her face. But I knew her, and I knew she was struggling. You know what I mean? Didn't have much. She had to take care of her grandkids, her daughter,
Mm,
son-in-law didn't live up to much. You know what I mean?
right.
She's always got a happy smile on her face. And it was because she was always helping others. She was always looking out for the needs of others. And
Yeah.
that brought her joy, right? So she was able to deal with all of these life struggles that the normal person might, get aggravated at, and why me, and have a woe was me attitude, but it
Yeah.
kept her, cheerful and smiling through it all. So I
Yeah.
think we need that, right? We need to be able to check out of ourselves by doing that, but also just give back to somebody. Brings us so much joy, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think, especially I mean, if the restrictions lift and people can start to, volunteer more and go in, and especially with older people. My mother-in-law, before she passed, she was in an old age home. And I used to love going in there because you just sit down and engage in conversations with some of the people, just the stories they would tell you and the experiences. And I'm telling you, you could learn a lot from some of these people. They didn't have much in terms of education or qualifications or anything else, but tell you the life experience, the stories that, the things you can learn from their
Yes.
stories is absolutely amazing.
Right. And
So
people don't realize two things. One, there's a way you can volunteer. You can give back. This is an option that, what, most um, retirement homes allow this as a service. Now you have to get cleared. You have to go through the police checks and things like that to volunteer.
yeah,
But I mean, it's worth it because you also get to have that two-way mentor relationship, right? You get to spend time with somebody who's been there, done that,
yeah,
hear their stories. But again, you get to make them feel better by just having someone to spend time with and share those stories with them.
yeah,
Everybody at that home has already heard their stories a dozen times over, right?
yeah,
They need
yeah.
a fresh face to come in and cheer them up and spend some
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And it's,
I mean,
a
there's
way.
stuff you can do even now. Even with the lockdown and restrictions and so on. Get a small bag of groceries or something, and just take it up the street and knock on some neighbor's door and leave it on their front step, and just step back at the sidewalk. And somebody that maybe in the neighborhood is struggling, or somebody in your apartment complex or your condo, wherever you are, finding somebody that way to do it. Uh, I mean, my wife, we got a couple of young families on the street. They have a few children each, and my wife, every once in a while, she'll just order up a pizza and deliver it to their homes. Right? They know where it's coming from, and
Sure.
sometimes she's delivered it to them. But it's just fun for her to do that and just give that back.
And it doesn't matter whether it's anonymous or whether you're doing this, intentionally, but just
Yeah,
making that other people feel better with no expectation of return too, right? No
sure.
expectation that, oh, I'm doing this because I'm going to get this, right? There's
Yeah,
there's part of it too. You have to go into it with an attitude of, I'm just doing this for you.
yeah, yeah. I think it's I often use the illustration of a pond. When a pond is at first, a pond is clear. There's lots of growing. There's lots of life going on. But if there's no water coming in, water going out, it just becomes stagnant.
Right.
And then it begins to deteriorate, it begins to rot, it begins to get stale, it begins to grow all kinds of fungus, and all kinds of craziness starts going on. And it's the same in our lives. If we don't have the right amount of stuff coming into us to keep us fed and fresh and growing, and we don't have enough going out that we're giving and serving and helping, then things can begin to get stagnant in our heart. And truthfully, I think to the degree that we can love and care for ourselves is the degree that we can care and love for others. And so if we really love ourselves and are growing and developing as a person, then we can begin to extend that and give that away. And you know, and I think it's, I think love is just one of those things that needs to flow. It's not something that we just take and just hold on to. It can become like that pond. It's got to be given away, because as we give it away, then more grows and
Mhm.
rises up in there, right?
And,
It's
and
just that continued.
we're helping everything else to grow at the same time, right? By
Yeah,
sharing that with somebody else, by passing it on. You're passing on the wisdom, you're passing on the lore, so that someday it carries on a little further.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. I totally there was an analogy I was thinking of, as I've lost it. But
Uh-oh. And it was
it can
probably
happen.
genius.
It was. It's a thought I have over and over again. I get to share it with people another time. But again, you know what? We have to be able to. Oh, it's. I remember where I was going. Is that it's Jim Rohn. Again, I'm a big student of Jim Rohn. He's
Yeah,
taught
yeah,
me
I love that guy. He's
character.
great.
He's taught me
Yeah.
how to be a decent person. He talks about it, and I call it the circle of evolution. And that is study, practice, teach.
Mm,
So when we're kids, we have to learn. It's our job to soak up all the knowledge we can. We got to study and put
yeah,
everything we can into learning.
yeah,
But then we have to put what we learn into practice. We have to go out and do these things in order for us to grow, in order to understand them and know them better. And
yeah.
then we have to pass that on. We have to teach that to others. So, but then they begin the study. So there's the evolution where that study, practice, teach never really stops. And we are where we are today because of this 3 cycle process.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And I mean, as we teach, then it just deepens in our own hearts too,
Right.
right?
I
It
think it
just
was Stephen
deepens.
Covey who taught that lesson, who says, you know what, you have to, in order to learn it better, in order to, become a better student of it, go out and teach it to others.
Yeah,
The more you teach it, the more you learn from it.
that's right. Yeah. No, it's fantastic stuff. Yeah.
And so that's why we're doing what we do here. I've shared this message through this community as much as I can. I'm excited to connect with people like yourselves to help share it with other people as much as we can, because I'm not necessarily the best teacher out there, certainly not the only teacher out there.
Right.
I have learned so much from you in my years of knowing you, and it's up to us to kind of share these messages and share the wisdom, so that again people can start to carry this forward to others, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No. And on that topic of learning from people, I always encourage people. I always encourage my students that I've taught. It's just like, don't take everything I say as 100% truth. Go and study it for yourself. Examine it for yourself. If I say something, or if I encourage you in something or teach something, check it out and cross-reference it. Look around and see what others are saying about it, so that it deepens in you, right? Don't just take what a teacher is teaching you. You need to dig in there yourself and research it a little bit. And I think, again, that's one of those things we're conditioned in school. We just take stuff. Teacher says, okay, then that must be it. The teacher says this, okay, then that must be it. We don't take it any deeper and really understand how or why. We just take the what. We take the information and just run with that. So I always teach the opposite. Look, I'm going to
Mhm.
encourage you with this. I'm going to share this. This is my thought. This is my understanding. This is my perspective. Maybe look at it. Does it match up with yours? Does it make sense for you? Does it, does it ring true with other research that you're seeing? And that's how we really, really grow, I think, when we start to dig in a little bit deeper.
See, one of my problems is I'm too inquisitive. I want to know too much. I ask too many questions. I
Right.
used to get in trouble because I asked why, what, tell me this, tell me that. And, you know,
Sure.
but I think one of my policies still to this day is question everything.
Yeah.
Don't take everything you hear. Look, you want to know why January 6th happened? Because people didn't even question what they were being told, right? And why they were being told. They just took this information and went, well, this is what we're supposed to do.
Right.
That's why things like that can happen, because they don't question the information that they're taking in. Because
Yeah.
T. Harv Eker, I love his famous line, don't believe a word I say,
Sure.
right? And he has another line, nothing is true unless it's true for you. In other
Yes.
words, apply it. Take what you've learned and apply it to your own life. Because look, Jim has his life. He's put together, again, pretty well. But that's according to his life and his dreams and his path.
Yeah.
My path is not the same as his. Your path out there is not the same as ours. So apply it to your own life. And how does it work so that you can
Yeah.
take that next step?
That's right. And again, that comes back that loops back to success. It's same as success. My definition of success isn't yours, isn't the next person. My success isn't your success. It's not anybody else's success. It's my success. That's why each of us needs to define it, personally, so that we know what it is. Because, somebody's level of success might be completely different than next. Some people, it might be making a couple $100,000 a year and paying off their home and having some investments and retiring at 65. And if that's your idea of success, that's a wonderful success. Others, it's making multiples and it's having more investments and lots of properties and maybe never retiring, but just continuing to grow wealth and continuing to serve and do. And everybody's definition is completely different. And so we need to know what that is, because then once we define what our success is, then we know what we need to do to achieve that and start working out towards that. And then things will start to make sense to us, right? People listening to your show, listening to these recordings that don't have a definition of success, some of the stuff may not make any sense to them at all. And maybe, but when they have a clear definition and you say something, it's like, oh, that makes sense. I can apply that to my, oh, this makes sense. Maybe getting this program or, connecting with this mentor, everything starts to make sense once you've got a definition of where you want to go. Right? It's the same as values. I was told by a mentor years ago, if you don't stand for one thing, you'll fall for anything. So you need to know what you value, what is important to you, what are you committed to, what is your identity, because that's really important. Because again, what you connect with, how you, the programs, the people, the things you want to invest in, to learn and to grow in, that's all going to be hinge around your values, what's important, what you're committed to, what your identity is. Right. So it all kind of ties in. It's a cycle, I believe.
I think look, we're all going to have our definition of success. It's up to you what success means to you. I think, though, the closest we can come to a definition of success, I heard it once, and it's a quote. I don't know who was quoted as it, but it is about the continuous progress towards the realization of your dreams. And to me, that's what keeps me going. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter that my dreams have not been achieved yet. It matters that I get up every morning and I do something to get closer towards it. Yeah. That's, I think, the key focus right there.
Yeah, no. And again, it ties back to what we talked about writing down the goals and having actionable steps and having all that, because then you can mark it, then you can track it, then you can see your progress. But if you just think, oh, I want to be successful.
What does that mean?
That's right. You're not going to get there. Right. It'd be like standing beside a barn and, being 10 feet away with a stone and saying, I want to hit that barn. Well, so what? You hit the broadside of a barn with a stone. Now, how about make a little, 1 foot mark on the thing and stand back 100 feet and say, that's my target. That's what I'm shooting for. That's defining success. Because then when you hit that spot, then you've made it. And it's the same with our life. We can apply it to relationships, to business, to making money, to careers, to anything. Once we define what those are, then we can start to move directly towards that. Right? It's the only way you can hit a bullseye. If you're in archery or shooting range or anything like that, it's the only way you can tell if you're, getting to the target is by having a bullseye, having the thing to really mark it in.
And I think under the circumstances, instead of referring to a bullseye, let's talk about golf, because golf is about getting that par, right? Getting even. And, it may take 4 shots or it may take 5 shots, but there's your marker. There's what I have to reach.
Yeah.
Here's the shots. Okay, I got here this time. Ooh, it's off on the side. It's a little rough. But if I take this shot, I can get back onto the green. I can get back onto the fair path and get back in the game, right? So I think there's an analogy that kind of relates it a little bit better, because hey, you're not going to get it your first shot. Nobody's Robin Hood and go boom, right? So I think the practice of getting to that goal, wherever that target may be, that's your mission.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you say, you're not going to hit it the first time. You got to keep trying. You got to keep going at it. I'm in my just turned 61. So, I'm still actively pursuing. I'm still moving towards it. I've had to adjust a lot, over the years to continue to move towards it. But it's that game of adjustment. It's a game of, just adjusting that little bit. So, yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. I love that we can have these conversations. We can, kind of be candid and open and allow ourselves to talk about our own lives in order to help others grow and be empowered by that. So thank you for coming out and sharing this with us today.
Oh, no, this has been great. Amazing. Yeah, no, I love what you're doing. And I think this is fantastic to have these conversations.
Absolutely. And I hope I can get more guests like yourself out. Again, you are a relationship expert. You've had a long marriage. Have you had kids? You know what? I don't even know that about you, Jim.
Oh
Do you
yes,
have
yeah,
kids? I mean, I would
yeah,
assume, but I don't, you can't assume these
yeah,
modern
no, you
day
can't
days.
assume anymore. No, I have a son and a daughter, and they're both, they're both adult children. They're both married. We had our first grandchild last year, and so yeah, they got great careers, great spouses, and so we're
Great
really
relationships with
thrilled for
them.
their lives. Yeah, yeah.
So give us, if you could, parting advice. How do we keep our relationships so on a level that we can enjoy? How can we keep everybody happy around us so that we can stay
Yeah,
happy?
yeah. So I think, I think the first thing is like we talked about earlier, just putting more into the relationship than you take out of it, and being clear on the expectations. One of the things that I speak to couples about is remembering the I do's, because you say I do when you get married, but you said a bunch of I do's leading up to that moment, right? You saw something in that person, you saw something of value, you saw something that you wanted to get to know, you wanted to spend more time with them, you wanted to invest with, your life with them, and so on. And it's remembering those I do's, the reason why you wanted to be with that person, and make it your intention to make that other person happy that they're in your life. Don't just assume that they're happy that you're in your life. Make them happy that they're in your life. Make them, you know, glad that they chose you, that they chose to invest in you as well. Because remember that your partners in business, your children, your spouse or partner, they don't have to be in your life. They choose to be in your life. So make them happy that they chose to be in your life. And, for my wife and I, like I said, we've been married for 39 years. We've never lost that respect for one another. We never took that for granted. And so we set those boundaries and just said, we're just not going to lessen that. I'm going to remember why I said I do. I'm going to remember why I wanted to have you in my life. And I'm going to work hard daily to make you pleased that I, am in your life. I don't want you just to, I don't want to take it for granted thinking that, oh yeah, she loves me because I'm the greatest guy in the world. No, she loves me because I truly treat her like the best person in the world, and I think it's just honoring people that way, respecting them, preferring them over yourself. I mean, just putting their needs and their desires and what they want, putting that ahead of yours. It's like Zig Ziglar said that, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And it works especially in relationships. If you help that other person, and I don't mean allow them to walk all over you and do all that kind of stuff, but just serving them and encouraging them and blessing them and honoring them and respecting them and caring for them, you're going to get that back. And if you don't, then you need to have that conversation. You need to not be afraid. You need to speak it out. You need to talk to them and just say, look, I don't deserve to be treated this way. Because the truth is, you teach people how to treat you. Right? We teach people how to, when people disrespect us and we don't say anything about it, we've just taught them that that's okay. Right. If somebody says something to us, whether it's a derogatory remark or some sly remark, and we don't say anything, we've just taught them that that's okay, that that's an acceptable way. And that's in business, that's in work, that's in your neighborhood, that's with neighbors and friends, that's with your spouse, long-term partners. That we teach them how to treat us. And so if you want to be treated better, teach them how to treat you.
Absolutely. For sure. And I love the one thing you said. Again, I believe we have a responsibility um, to make people want to be around us. They have to have a reason to want to be around us. Otherwise, look, why am I here?
Sure.
Right? I don't need your time. Honestly, if I'm not enjoying this, I can be somewhere else.
Sure. We can all think of people in our lives that when we're around them, we just love being with them. Right? We all know that. We've been at meetings, we've been at gatherings, we've been at neighborhood or family picnics or whatever. And there's always that one or two people that we really want to be around. Ask yourself why. And then ask yourself, how can I become like that? Yes. So that I'm the type of person that people want to hang around. I want to be the guy that when I leave the room going, man, I really miss Jim. Why isn't he back here? I want people to be like that. Or when I go into a room, I want people to get excited that I come into a room. I don't want them putting their head down going, oh no, he's back. I don't want that. Right. So learning how to become that person that people are attracted to. we can develop that magnitude. We can develop that kind of charisma. It's just continuing to grow, continue to work on it. And it doesn't mean that we all have to be that outgoing, flamboyant, kind of personality. We can be introverted and quiet, but still be the kind of person that people want to be around. Why? Because we're interested in them, we care about them, we respect them, and people want to be around people like that. People don't want to, you don't want to hang out with somebody that's arrogant and rude and self-centered and, self-deserving and all that stuff. You want to be around somebody that respects you and cares for you and really listens attentively to you. So be that person, become the person that people want to hang around with. It's absolutely the way to go.
That was exactly the path I had to take, right? I knew when I was miserable, I was angry, I was chasing away everybody.
Sure.
And in order to get that back, I had to become different. I had to become somebody other than this person that I was chasing away everybody, right? There had to be something to change and become better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, this has been great.
Absolutely. So again, Jim, how can people, again, your first book was, again, your relationship.
Yeah, your relationship handbook. Yeah, relationship rescue handbook, the 11 F words to increase the love. So I have 11 F words that I talk about in there. And
these are good F words, right?
Yeah, all good, clean F words. It was absolutely funny. I had people, say, "Oh yeah, I can think of a few." I've said, "I'm sure you can," but I really tried to work hard to keep this clean. But yeah, so I talk about faith in there. I talk about family, friendship, your future, finances. I talk about all these different areas in our life. Flexible is one of the last things I talk about. How to be, staying flexible in a relationship. Got to stay flexible. So yeah, so that was my first book. And then the second book was the 7 Laws of Love. So I talked about, how to be truly successful in life and business. That was the second book that I wrote. And I really, I kind of wrapped up the whole thing about time and our attitude and change and all these different elements around this chapter of love. And we talked about the lies of love, the layers of love, the different things, because oftentimes we look at love, we think, oh, that's for somebody else. Oh, that's good for them, but not for me. We talk about all the different lies in there, because again, like I said earlier, to the degree we can love ourselves is the degree that we can love another person. There's never a person, I don't think, that's been abusive or terrible or anything that love themselves 100%, right? If they got love in here, they're not abusive to the dog, they're not kicking the cat, they're not doing any of those things, because they've got love. And so when love is out of balance in our hearts, it becomes out of balance in everything else in our lives. There's the degrees that it's off. So that's what I wrote about in my second book. And it was more about the balance between life and business. It was that struggle coming out of 12 years of 12 years ago. And then so now the new one is on just being prepared for life after marriage. Because I just saw so many people are disillusioned, thinking, I'm going to meet someone, fall in love, and live happily ever after.
That's what we're told, right? So
that's right.
That's the dream.
That's it. That's the dream.
But it doesn't work that way.
So now I talk about the work that needs to happen before. So that's what this new book is all about.
The work that happens before to prepare for this? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Be prepared for marriage before you get married. Don't just jump in and expect it to happen. Just expect to live happily ever after. Start putting some effort into it now. Start having the conversations now. What are our future goals? What are our financial goals? What are our family goals? What are, talk about all these things before you get in. Because there's no sense getting into marriage and saying, okay, how many kids? Oh, you don't want kids? Oh, we didn't talk about that. Or get in there and find out, oh, they spend lots and they're not saving, when your intention is to save and to work for a future and do all kinds. So we talk about that. And then the roles, I talk about the collision of cultures, right? Because we've all grown up in different homes and different environments, different culture backgrounds and so on. Now we get married. Now we're bringing everything into one roof. It's like, okay, now you got this collision of cultures. Now it's like, okay, how is this going to work? And it's just learning the difference between having a role-less marriage and just being responsible in marriage, not having roles, not defining that this is a man's work, this is a woman's work, and so on. But it's the responsibility inside a marriage that we need to discuss and talk about. And that's something you want to do beforehand. It's kind of like being a sport. You're going to learn a little bit of the rules before you start playing the sport. Can't start introducing rules and when you're playing, you can't be making them up as you go. You need to start ahead of time. Understand how it's all going to function. You're not going to get it 100%, but at least start the dialogue, at least have the conversations, so that when Monday morning hits after the honeymoon's over and you start living your life together, you know what to expect, you know where you're going, and then you got something to refer to and grow from.
Absolutely. By the title of your book, you would expect that, oh, we've gotten married, so how do we deal with it now? But I love that you're talking about the idea of getting prepared for marriage, and now you're in a better place to to deal with those unexpected things that may come up, because you're not going to worry about, you know, how many kids are we going to have. Those are the conversations that you're already going to have. You're going to know what each other kind of expects from the relationship, and
Yeah.
then that compromise is a little easier, right?
Yeah, that's right. And from my study, my research that I did, that was one of the top reasons for divorce, is just not being prepared. People, they had no idea what was involved in being married. And people were getting married for all kinds of crazy reasons, like, I've never worn a tuxedo before, it'd be kind of cool to wear a tuxedo, let's get married. I got a terrible home life, so let's get married so I can get out of it. There's all kinds of different reasons, but one of the biggest reasons for failure was just not being prepared, not being ready for it.
And I
So
mean, we can all do all we want to be prepared. We can never truly be prepared. Life
no,
happens to us.
sure.
But by going in with a certain amount of preparation, we're more
Yeah.
able to manage what comes our way, right?
Sure. It's
Yeah.
like learning how to swim without jumping in the water. You could read all about it. You can practice the stroke, the different strokes on dry land, but until you actually dive in the water and start doing it, you're really not going to see how it all comes together and works. And it's the same in marriage. So you can do lots of preparation beforehand. After you get married and you take that big plunge, then now you've at least got some tools, you've got some resource, you've got some experience, because that's what part of it is, right? We don't know how to deal with things because we don't have the reference in our minds. So when we spend time studying, looking, researching, talking, discussing everything, then we've got reference. When we get into it, then a situation arises, we go, oh yeah, we had this conversation. We talked about this. We got a bit of a reference that we can use to help us through that. And that's what it is. And it's the same with anything. It doesn't matter what kind of business or career you're in. You can study and learn and grow and learn all the stuff you want in college, university, or trade school. It's not until you actually start to apply it that it really starts to make sense.
And one of the things is, at least with me, I find most of us find partners who are different than us. I mean, that's how we complement ourselves and our
Yeah.
relationship, is to find that person who's an opposite. But that also causes its own conflicts. And I just wanted to point out, you know what, in order for my wife and I to move forward, we needed to be courteous of the other person, right? Unless
Yeah.
I was considerate of her thoughts and feelings in the moment, we weren't going to get anywhere. We weren't going to get beyond this. So
That's right.
we have to give
Yeah. Oh yeah.
our
You get into a relationship, there's your way, there's their way, and then there's our way. That's really what you need to look at it. And so often in relationships, whether it's in marriage or business or anything, it's so often you want it my way, right? It's got to be my way or no way. Well, no,
right.
you have to consider the other person. Just because this is your way doesn't make you right in everything, right? There's 7 billion of us in the planet, so you can't be right. You can't be perfectly right about it. There's got to be some other understanding. And so yeah, I think that's such a key point, is just looking at it from the other person's
Exactly.
side and just taking their value and where they're coming from.
Because you want a win-win in this situation, right? You
Oh,
want the best
sure.
for everybody. Sure, you want your best for you, but this is also your partner who is deeply connected to you. By
Yeah,
giving them the best outcome for them, it becomes the best outcome for you. So how do we get to that? And
that's
that's
right.
the communication, that's the courtesy, that's the
Yeah,
love that you guys share, right?
yeah, yeah. That's the deep questions. Yeah, that's awesome.
And having that conversation and having it be open with your partner or whoever you're dealing with in your relationships, even if it's the person at the store, give
Yeah,
them that little bit of courtesy, because again, they're just trying to live that same life you are and get through their day just like you are. We're all the same. So
yeah,
a little bit of courtesy goes a long way, right?
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely.
So we've had a great talk, you and I.
Yeah,
Um, I want you around in our community for a long time to come. I think you are one of the go-to relationship experts. So I hope to
appreciate
be able
that.
to share your message out here in this community for a long time to come. But in the meantime, tell people more about you, how they can get in touch with you, how they can get involved in mentoring and coaching from Jim, the relationship expert.
Yeah, so they can just go to jimhetherington.com. You type that in, I'm going to come up. There's lots of, we can connect through through my website. You can just fill out the form there, and that'll drop a link to me, or just jim@jimhetherington.com. That'll send an email, and you can reach out and get a hold of me. So we're there's all kinds of ways that we can do. I do group mentoring, we do one-on-one mentoring, we do all kinds of things, and I typically find that I can do things short term, within 3 to 4 months of just kind of working together. We can just do some great tools, and even spending a day together, spend a day with couples, and we can just kind of break through some of the barriers and just really reestablish some things. So through the website, it's probably the best thing right now. I'm working at. I mean, it's been up there. It's it's a good website, but it's continuing to update and keep things in there that I need to work on. But that's a great point to start in. Is just right there. Just reach out, and I'd even be happy to sit down and just have a one-on-one. Just to see where people are, and just see if there's ways that we can help. Sometimes it's just having a bit of a conversation, and just getting things back on track. Other times there's a little bit more that we can do together. So it's just discovering what works best. So so that would be the best way right now, is just grab me on my website, and
awesome.
Let's connect.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Jim. Again, I want people to connect out there. So hopefully they visit you. Again, jimhetherington.com. Spell your last name, or spell that website out for us, please, so that people can figure that out.
Yeah. So you can see it on my screen. It might be a little bit small, but
sure, but we will turn this into audio at some point. So if you can spell that out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Jim Hetherington is HETHERINGTON.com. So that's the easiest way to get it. So just remember, it's Heather with no A. Typically Heather, they want to put an A in it. So without the A, and you'll get me. And I'd love to connect. Just see how I can serve.
Absolutely. Thank you. And again, you are an authority in this community. People are going to have more exposure to you. So please get to know Jim, jimhetherington.com. You're going to hear more from him in the Live and Love Life community. Please visit us for more at www.live-love-life.ca. Again, Jim, thank you for all your expertise. Thank you for being part of Life Empowered. I think we've left people with some tremendous advice to help them power their life.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because that's my intention. And every conversation I get at, to, just to offer as much value as I can, and just to encourage people, to have the best relationships that they desire and really want. So I'm excited to be a part of this and have this time together. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of it. And again, I'm RJ Horner, host and facilitator here in Live and Love Life Leadership. And until next time, better days